They said I didn't belong at the party, but I was the one paying for everyone's luxury. The night revealed who truly held the power. They said I didn't belong at the party. Those exact words, whispered just loud enough for me to hear as I stepped into the chandelier-lit hall. The same hall I had rented for the evening. Their laughter mixed with the clinking of champagne glasses, dismissive, careless. I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile because none of them knew the truth. Every drop of champagne in their crystal flutes had been paid for by me. It was my cousin Daniela's birthday, or at least that's what the family was calling it. In reality, it was just another excuse for them to parade their wealth and connections, leaving me at the sidelines. They'd never forgiven me for being the quiet one, the simple one, the cousin who didn't flaunt cars or handbags or vacations. To them, I was invisible. I walked slowly across the marble floor, feeling dozens of eyes trail me, some curious, most disapproving. Daniela, draped in sequins, shot me that smile, the one that said she'd already decided how tonight would go. "Oh, you came," she exclaimed, tone dripping with sarcasm. "I wasn't sure you'd fit in." I let her words hang in the air and only replied with a polite nod. No one needed to know, yet that the luxury yacht parked outside, the one everyone was bragging about boarding tomorrow, wasn't hers. It was mine, bought quietly through a company they didn't know I owned. I found a seat near the edge of the room, letting their conversations wash over me. They talked about deals, vacations in Mykonos, designer outfits, pretending their lives were untouchable. None of them noticed how the hotel manager approached me discreetly, checking if everything was to my liking. I simply nodded, and he disappeared as quickly as he'd come. If only they knew. Every candle, every velvet curtain, every imported bottle of wine, all had my name on the receipts. And yet here I sat, treated like an intruder at my own event. What they didn't know was that tonight, for the first time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. The evening dragged on, and I kept sipping water while they ordered champagne after champagne. Their laughter grew louder, the air thicker with perfume and arrogance. Daniela paraded from group to group like a queen, always careful to emphasize how exclusive her arrangements were. She claimed she had friends in high places who made this party possible. I nearly choked on my drink when I heard her say it. I noticed how people avoided eye contact with me, except when they wanted to make a sly comment. My uncle leaned close as I passed by and muttered, "You should be grateful Daniela even invited you." Another cousin snickered about my outfit, as if my tailored dress wasn't worth 3 times their off-the-rack glitter. But instead of reacting, I observed. Every insult was another reminder of why I had stayed silent for so long. They thrived on appearances, on illusions. And I had built something real. The irony was cruel. While they gossiped about who didn't belong, the waiters kept slipping over to me, whispering updates. "The caviar is running low. Do we bring out the reserve? Shall we open the second case of vintage champagne now, ma'am?" Their professionalism was flawless, their discretion absolute. Not one of my relatives caught on. Daniela raised her glass during dinner and announced, "Tonight, we celebrate family, class, and taste." Everyone clapped, though half were already tipsy. I simply smiled, my fork poised over my plate. Family? Class? Taste? None of those words belonged in this room. Across the table, my cousin Roberto leaned toward me, his smirk oily. "So, how did you sneak in here anyway? Did you win a raffle?" The table roared with laughter. I bit back the truth that his wine glass alone cost more than his monthly rent, and I had paid for all of it. The heat in my chest burned, but wasn't shame anymore. It was power. They had no idea that every word, every cruel laugh, was taking place inside a palace I had built. And when the moment came to reveal it, I swore they would never forget who truly owned this night. The first real crack appeared when Daniela's so-called best friend, a woman named Sylvia, approached me. She wasn't part of the family, which explained why she at least had the decency to whisper, instead of sneer. "You seem calm," she said, swirling her wine. "Most people would crumble under this kind of treatment." I tilted my head. Why should I? They're drinking my wine, eating my food, celebrating in my hall. If anything, I should be thanking them for entertaining me. Her brows furrowed, but before she could ask what I meant, Daniela grabbed her arm and pulled her away, declaring loudly, "Don't waste your time. She doesn't know how these things work." The guests laughed again, clapping for Daniela's wit as if she were hosting a comedy show. I let it slide. For now, dinner stretched into hours of overindulgence. Lobster tails, gold-dusted desserts, imported wines, everything they flaunted as their own conquest. Every toast Daniela made was another performance, thanking her connections, praising her taste. But then came the bill. It wasn't meant for me, of course. The staff knew better than to expose the truth, but I caught sight of the folder discreetly placed into Daniela's manicured hands. She didn't open it. Instead, she shoved it toward my uncle and announced, "As always, the family will contribute equally. That's how we keep things fair." Fair. I almost laughed out loud. I knew what was written in that folder. A sum so astronomical, it would make half of them choke. And yet, not a single coin would leave their wallets tonight, because I had already covered it. I leaned back in my chair, letting them argue about who owed what, who had forgotten their wallet, who would make it up later. The waiters looked only at me for direction. With one subtle nod, I signaled them to continue service. No one noticed. Not yet. But I could feel the shift coming, the moment when their entire illusion would collapse under the weight of a truth they couldn't escape. The music grew louder as the night moved toward the dance floor. Daniela twirled in the center, dress sparkling under the chandeliers, her admirers circling her like moths. I stood at the edge, unnoticed, watching her raise her glass and shout, "To luxury, to knowing how to live." Everyone cheered. Everyone except me. That was the moment I felt it, the pressure building in my chest, the kind you can't hold back forever. But instead of storming the stage, I smiled and walked toward the bar. The bartender leaned closer and whispered, "Shall we prepare the special presentation now, ma'am?" Not yet. I ordered simple soda and watched as my relatives devoured the last tray of desserts. Their complaints started bubbling up, too predictable to surprise me. The service is slow. The lobster was a bit cold. The wine could have been French, not Italian. Criticizing luxury, they couldn't even dream of affording. I almost pitied them. Almost. Then, as if the universe itself wanted to stir the pot, Daniela grabbed the microphone. Her voice rang sharp through the speakers. "I want to thank everyone who made this night possible. Especially my dear friends in hospitality who know how to treat a lady of class." Applause erupted, shallow and hollow. And then she added with a smirk, "Unlike some people here who wouldn't know the first thing about luxury." Her eyes found mine across the room. The crowd followed her gaze, and for a moment the spotlight caught me. Whispers darted like arrows. I stood still, calm, even as the familiar burn of humiliation licked my throat. But what none of them realized, what Daniela herself had no clue about, was that the staff, the lights, the champagne, the very walls around us, answered only to me. And I was getting closer to the moment I'd let them all see it. The scene happened sooner than I expected. Daniela, drunk on both champagne and attention, strutted toward the bar where I was standing. Her sequin dress caught the light like she thought she was on a runway. She leaned against the counter, looked me up and down, and said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, "You know, I almost didn't invite you. These events are for people who belong." A hush rippled through the cluster of guests behind her. My cousin Roberto snorted into his glass. Someone else muttered, "She's right." Daniela smirked, satisfied with her little performance. She turned to the bartender and snapped her fingers. "Another bottle of your most expensive champagne. Tonight, no limits." The bartender froze, eyes darting toward me. For a split second, the entire illusion trembled. I gave the tiniest nod. He poured smoothly, as if nothing had happened. But Daniela noticed. Her brows pinched. "What was that? Why are you looking at her?" The bartender hesitated, caught between discretion and instinct. The silence stretched. Daniela's voice sharpened, drunk and demanding. "I'm asking you a question. Why are you taking orders from her?" The air in the room changed. Conversation stalled. Music suddenly felt too loud, and half the eyes in the hall swiveled toward us. I didn't move, didn't speak, not yet. Let them wonder. Let them piece it together. My calmness rattled Daniela more than any insult could have. And for the first time that night, I saw a flicker of doubt cross her face. Daniela's tone sharpened, her voice carrying over the music. "Why are you all looking at her? She's nobody here. I'm the host, not her." She gestured toward me with a dismissive flick, as if I were a stain on her glittering evening. That was when Miguel, the head manager of the hotel, appeared. He had been keeping a respectful distance all night, but Daniela's arrogance forced his hand. He bowed slightly, not to her but to me. "Ma'am," he said softly, but the microphone Daniela still held picked up his words. "Shall we bring out the midnight buffet now, or would you prefer to delay until your signal?" The room froze. Forks stopped midair. Laughter cut short. Dozens of eyes swung between Miguel and me, confusion blooming like wildfire. Daniela blinked, then laughed, high-pitched and shaky. You must be confused. I'm the host. This is my party." Miguel didn't flinch. His gaze stayed on me. "As you wish, ma'am." I held his eyes for a long moment, then nodded once. "Bring it out." A small army of waiters immediately rushed forward, unveiling silver platters of delicacies no one in my family had ever tasted before. Lobster towers, chocolate fountains, imported truffles, the kind of luxury even Daniela couldn't fake her way into. The whispers erupted. Why is he asking her? Did you hear that? He called her ma'am. What's going on? Daniela's face drained of color, her painted smile trembling. For the first time in years, she had lost control of the room. And I hadn't even said a word yet. The hall buzzed with uneasy chatter. Some cousins shifted in their seats, pretending not to stare. Others weren't so subtle, whispering while their eyes clung to me like magnets. Daniela tried to laugh it off, raising her glass again. See? They're just confused. Obviously, the staff doesn't know how to handle instructions. Her voice cracked at the edges. But don't worry, I've got everything under control. It was almost pathetic, almost. The waiters ignored her completely. They moved swiftly around me, arranging the midnight buffet as if I were the only person in the room. One even asked politely, "Would you prefer the champagne tower in the center or closer to the dance floor, miss?" The room erupted in hushed gasps. Daniela's glass slipped, champagne spilling down her sequin dress. "Miss," she snapped. "You mean me." The waiter's expression didn't change. His eyes flicked to me again, waiting. And that's when Roberto, always the loudest fool in the family, leaned across the table and sneered. "Wait, what's happening? Are you trying to tell us she paid for this? Please. She can barely pay her own rent." The laughter was sharp, but it didn't last. Miguel stepped forward, his voice firm, clear enough for everyone to hear this time. "With respect, sir, every detail of tonight was arranged by her. The reservation, the menu, the entertainment. This entire celebration is under her name." Silence. Dozens of faces turned to me, mouths open, pride cracking like porcelain. Daniela's hand trembled around her empty glass. And I finally spoke. "That's right. Every bite you've eaten, every drink you've raised, every chandelier above your head, it's mine. And yet, you spent the entire night telling me I didn't belong." The room tilted in my favor. For the first time ever, I watched them choke not on food, but on the truth. For a long moment, no one moved. The clinking of glasses, the hum of conversation, the background music, everything had vanished into stunned silence. My words hovered above them, heavier than the chandeliers. Then came the scramble. Daniela forced out a laugh, too sharp to sound natural. "Oh, come on. She's just joking. Right." Her eyes darted between me and the staff, desperate for someone to play along. No one did. Roberto leaned forward, cheeks flushed with alcohol and shame. "If this is true, why didn't you say anything earlier? Why let us believe?" "Because you were so sure of yourselves," I answered calmly. "You didn't need my truth. You were too busy performing your own lies." My uncle, the same one who'd mocked me earlier, suddenly smiled, as if he'd just discovered a long-lost friend. Well, you've really done well for yourself. We always knew you had potential." His voice dripped with fake warmth, and a few others quickly joined in, nodding, offering forced compliments. I watched them twist and squirm, scrambling to rewrite the narrative, to pretend they'd never dismissed me, never laughed in my face. But I didn't give them the comfort of pretending. "You said I didn't belong," I reminded them, my voice steady, sharp. "Tonight proved you were right, but not in the way you think. I don't belong in your small world of envy and pretense. I belong to something bigger. And none of you even noticed until the bill came due. Gasps. Nervous laughter. A few people looked down at their plates, ashamed. Daniela stood frozen, her glittering facade crumbling with each passing second. And in that silence I realized I didn't even need to humiliate them further. The truth itself had already done the work. Daniela's mask finally cracked. Her cheeks flushed crimson, her smile trembling as she tried to steady her glass. This is ridiculous. You're making it sound like I used you. The room shifted. Even her closest admirers looked uncertain now, their loyalty wobbling. Someone whispered, but she did. I stepped forward, slow, deliberate, until I stood just a few feet from her. Use me. My voice carried easily, calm but cutting. No, Daniela. You ignored me, mocked me, and still enjoyed every ounce of luxury I paid for. That's not using. That's leeching. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The sequins on her dress sparkled under the lights, but all eyes were on her crumbling composure. You paraded as a queen tonight, I continued, but queens don't depend on someone else's crown. Everything here, I swept my hand at the glittering hall, the overflowing buffet, the mountains of champagne, belongs to me. And all you brought was arrogance. The silence was electric. My uncle shifted uncomfortably. Roberto looked down at his shoes. Even Sylvia, Daniela's shadow, crossed her arms and leaned away as if she didn't want to be associated with her anymore. Daniela's lip quivered. Why didn't you just tell us? I let the pause stretch, savoring it. Then I said, because real power doesn't need to scream. It waits. It watches. And when the right moment comes, it speaks once, and everyone listens. Her glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the marble. No one rushed to help her. For the first time, she stood completely alone. I stood there, letting the shards of Daniela's broken glass sparkle on the marble like the ruins of her false throne. No one dared to move. The silence weighed heavier than any insult they had ever thrown at me. Finally, I straightened my shoulders and set my drink on the bar. Enjoy the rest of the evening, I said simply. After all, it's already been paid for. The words landed like a slap. Some of them flinched, others looked away in shame. My uncle cleared his throat, starting to mutter an apology, but I didn't give him the chance. I was already walking toward the exit, my heels clicking against the floor like a metronome of finality. The staff bowed their heads respectfully as I passed. Doors opened for me, not for Daniela, not for Roberto, not for any of them. Just me. Behind me, I heard Daniela's voice break, shrill, desperate. Wait. You can't just leave like this. We're family. I paused only long enough to glance over my shoulder. My eyes met hers, and in that moment, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Family doesn't tell you that you don't belong, I said quietly. Family doesn't make you invisible. Tonight wasn't about proving myself to you. It was about reminding myself of who I am. And with that, I pushed open the doors and stepped out into the night air. The city lights shimmered around me, vibrant and alive. For the first time in years, I felt completely free, not because they had finally seen my worth, but because I no longer needed their approval at all. I wasn't the guest. I wasn't the outcast. I was the one who owned the party all along.